Gracias nueva vez por sintonizar este video en su canal favorito acerca de la vida en Canadá. El día de hoy tenemos a una candidata a concejal por la ciudad de Fredericton, por la circunscripción número 10. La entrevista va a ser en inglés. Dicho esto, rueda intro. And we have here Cassandra Blackmore, who is a candidate for the City Council for Ward number 10 in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Ray?
Very good, very good. Thank you very much for accepting this request that we've sent to you.
I am so excited to be featured.
Most of my viewers are people that want to move to New Brunswick, and that's why I think you are a very good person to interview, because you've been around here for a lot of time, so you are going to give a lot of information that is valuable for most of my viewers.
Well, happy to help, and just so you know, we definitely want them to move here to New Brunswick, so please join us.
Great. So that's my first question. Were you born here in Fredericton?
I was born here in Fredericton. So I was born here in Fredericton, and then my family and I moved to Quispamsis, New Brunswick, which is just a few minutes outside St. John. And then we moved back to Fredericton when I was a teenager. So I've lived in Fredericton almost all of my life, and I've lived in New Brunswick all of my life.
What do you do for a living? What's your profession?
I am the executive director of the Fredericton Community Kitchens. Fredericton Community Kitchens is a charity. It was started in 1982, and on their first day open, they served one noontime meal to anyone that needed it. So as of last year, we actually served 190,000 meals to the Fredericton community. So we run a daily meal program where we provide 3 meals a day through the week and 2 meals a day on the weekend, and anyone can come get a hot meal. There's no questions asked, no information required. And then we also run a student hunger program where we provide lunches daily to 19 schools in Fredericton, and we do a weekly backpack program as well. And then we do a variety of outreach. So I'm the director of that charity.
Where can people go if they need food to eat?
We have a location in the downtown area. It is at 65 Brunswick Street. So for people that are from Fredericton, it's right behind the Victoria Health Center across from Wilmot Park. So people can go there. We have a breakfast between 7:45 and 8:15 is our breakfast service. We have a lunch service between 11:30 and 12:30, and we have a supper service between 5 and 5:45. And then we have a second location, which is on the north side of our city. It is a kitchen on the property of the Leo Hayes High School. It's called Kim's Kitchen. So that's our second kitchen, and that's where we run our student hunger program out of. So we have 2 locations in the city. And then we partner with a lot of different organizations to make food accessible throughout the city.
Most of the people who want to move here from my channel, they want to move as international students. One question that I've got asked is about access to food itself. If they don't have enough money to buy food, is there any program to help them to get access to purchase groceries?
Yep, so there's a couple of different programs. A really good place to start is talking to the Multicultural Association. So I always recommend when newcomers are coming to Fredericton to get connected with the Multicultural Association, because they know a lot of the different programs that would be useful for new immigrants. And then another good thing to do is to work with the Department of Social Development, because they are kind of have the pulse of a lot of different programs like that. And then there's a lot of different charities around town that provide different services. So there's no set programs necessarily, but there's a lot of different organizations doing a lot of different things. So if someone is in need and they need help with their groceries or need some food, there's a lot of different services available.
I have people who speak French, but they don't speak English, and they ask me often, can I live in New Brunswick if I only speak French and I don't speak English?
You absolutely can, because there are, especially in certain areas of New Brunswick, there's a lot higher Francophone population, so French is a lot more common. Even just in places like Moncton, there's a lot of mix between English and French. And here in Fredericton, there is French communities. I'm not going to say there's not. There definitely is, but there is a bit of a higher population of English people in Fredericton. Moncton is a bit more of a French mix. And then when you get into northern New Brunswick, there's a lot more French being spoken. But regardless of all of that, you can get all of the government services and a lot of different services in French because we're a bilingual province.
I've heard most of your podcast episodes, and I've heard on one of those episodes that you were homeschooled. And my audience and myself, we are very curious. Why were you homeschooled?
Well, I mean, it's a great question for my parents, but I was homeschooled for a variety of reasons. Partly because my family was religious, and I think there was a component with that. But I think the main reason I was homeschooled is because my mom is a natural teacher, and she wanted to have the opportunity to give us an education. I think my mom did an excellent job. Do I think homeschooling is for everyone? Absolutely not. There's definitely some negative sides to homeschooling, and there's some huge positive sides to homeschooling. I think it depends on the child. I really enjoyed homeschooling for the most part. I think that overall I got a really, really good education, and I have some really strong writing skills and critical thinking skills because I was homeschooled and had a bit of a different education.
How did your passion for politics start?
I think my passion for politics honestly came from my passion for people. And I think it kind of dawned on me that I should go into politics when I started to be more involved in more boards and in my job with the community kitchens. And then I'm also taking political science and sociology at St. Thomas University part-time. And all of those combination of factors, I realized that I have a certain number of skills that really align with being in a political position. I have the interest. I find it wildly interesting. And I think those are the kind of the puzzle pieces. And then I think you have to have certain people skills. You have to like talking to people. You have to be good at talking to people. You have to be a strong writer and a strong speaker and a strong leader. So I thought about it. And what really motivated me to run in this campaign is that it seemed like it was the right time for someone like me to be elected. And I think timing is everything in politics. So yeah, that's kind of what pushed me into the political sphere. I really love to problem solve. I really like to make a difference in what I'm doing, and I'm very determined and I'm very dedicated. And I just feel I can make a good service to the Fredericton community.
I've seen many candidates, and none of the candidates I've seen for city council are part of any political party. Like, why is that?
That is unique to municipal politics. So if you run provincially or federally, you have to join a political party and you have to run under a party banner. But the beauty in my mind of running in a municipal campaign is you run as an individual. Right now, I don't know if I align perfectly with any party at this moment. So it's difficult for me to think about running provincially or federally at this moment because of that.
You've just said that you don't identify with any party, you're not part of any party, but I'm just curious, like, define yourself. Are you center left, center right, center, far right, far left?
I would say I'm more center left. I think listening to people on the right, listening to people on the left, you can learn a lot. And I think that's really valuable. And I think really listening to people's arguments and what they care about and their perspectives, I think where you get the most done in any situation is when you collaborate.
There is a conception. A lot of people say that Fredericton is a conservative city. Do you agree with that perception? Is Fredericton a conservative city?
And I think Fredericton is a changing city. I think it's a city in the process of evolving right now. So there's areas of the city that may be considered more conservative. I also like to kind of bypass all that terminology, which is why I never like putting a label on myself politically, because I think it can sometimes close us in to certain ways of thinking.
Here in Fredericton, we don't have public buses on Sundays. That's something that people don't like, of course. Is there anything that you as a city council can do for improving that?
Transit is definitely something that needs to be improved in Fredericton, and there's lots of really innovative things that are in the hopper, I say, that are coming into Fredericton soon. They're working on an on-demand service right now, which will help to make Sunday transit a reality. What's challenging in the province of New Brunswick is other provinces, their provincial governments fund the transit system. But in New Brunswick, our provincial government leaves it up to the municipalities to fund them. So it's difficult because you're working from a smaller tax base and a smaller revenue stream. And as all of us know, transit it's a subsidized program. It's not something that makes money, it takes money. So it can be difficult for municipalities to provide the proper level of service because they're not getting the buy-in from the province. And not all provinces are like that. In the Nova Scotia, their provincial government subsidizes the municipal transit systems. So I think there's some changes that need to be made. I think there's some advocacy that needs to happen to help us make Sunday service a reality. And I'm excited for the on-demand service that may help to optimize our transit system. I think there's some advertising campaigns that need to happen as well. Sorry, my alarm's going off. I think there's some advertising campaigns and initiatives that need to happen to encourage people to run on transit. It's kind of a double-edged sword. It's like right now we have low ridership because our services aren't very good. But as a result, we have bad services. It's kind of like because we don't have one, we don't have the other. So it's a complicated issue because of that. But it's something I'm willing to put the work into and work with the amazing staff at the city of Fredericton to realize those dreams.
So how is the on-demand service going to work?
Well, my understanding of it, and I still have some research to do, but it's a project that they're looking to launch in the next couple of years. And there's a survey going out soon to help with this project. But how that will work is kind of like Uber for buses. So people would schedule that they would like a pickup at certain times, and it will help optimize their routes. Mm-hmm. So the hope behind the on-demand project is that if they can learn to optimize the routes, they have more of like an Uber system where people can request pickups. They can have more frequent service, they can have more buses on the road, and they can be more efficient with the routes. Because what happens is when you have a low ridership and they're doing routes not based off where people want to be picked up, but just predetermined, it's bad system.
Yes.
So it leads to low ridership. It leads to, big wait times between the buses. And it's just not efficient. So I do love it from an efficiency standpoint, the idea of the on-demand, but making it work, making it implemented, that will be the challenge.
Great. And we've talked about one of the challenges we have here in the city. What other challenges have you identified here in Fredericton?
Well, that has been the most interesting thing running for city council is there are so many different things that people care about in the city of Fredericton. And a lot of times they're conflicting interests. One of the big ones has been affordable housing. We've had a crazy year and our vacancy rate is now below, I think it's now at 1%. So for those of you who don't know, a vacancy rate really helps determine the pricing of units. When you have a really low vacancy rate, then the prices skyrocket. So that's what's happened in Fredericton and in much of Canada. So especially here in New Brunswick and in Fredericton, our vacancy rate is extremely low, which means our prices keep increasing. So it's really challenging. People's rents have gone up, and they keep going up. Housing market has gone bananas. Places are selling for I've heard of places selling for $75,000 more than they were listed. So it's a very hot market. So it's been a big issue that's been brought up over and over again, is finding ways and strategies to help bring more affordable housing. So it's going to be a variety of things that I'm going to have to work on as a counselor. So, I think everyone knows and has heard again and again that housing is a provincial problem. But I think there's some really important things that counselors and the city of Fredericton can do to help make a difference in that area. One is obviously advocacy, but I think there's also some unique and innovative strategies that we can implement to help bring more affordable housing to Fredericton.
Talking about housing, there is a question people ask me a lot, and it's about renting places. There are a lot of listings that say that this listing is for people who don't have pets, who don't have small children, but there is a concern about how legal is that? How legal is you not renting me because I have a 4 years old
Yeah,
son?
this has been a conversation I've been hearing more and more. There in bigger cities, it's actually illegal to say that you can't rent to someone that has a pet or children. So New Brunswick has a tenancy that I believe is called the Tenancy Act. It hasn't been reviewed in a lot of years, so I think that's something that needs to be looked at in New Brunswick. I think we need to do a little bit of an overhaul on our Tenancy Act to, strike a better balance between landlords and tenants and give some protections to people. And right now, it's something that hasn't been reviewed or looked at in many years. So it's kind of something that's ripe for the change. There's some groups working on that right now that are working towards more tenants' rights, and I think that it's something that will be coming in the near future.
Okay. Any other challenges that you can mention? Going outside
Yeah,
of the housing one,
there's
just to mention a few. Then we're
yeah,
gonna move
yeah,
to other
there's
things.
so many. Let me think here. Obviously, homelessness has been a huge issue in Fredericton, and that's something I care deeply about. And there's some really cool projects happening in Fredericton. The City Motel project is one I'm really excited about, and I'm confident that the city will make sure that one happens. Um, I've heard one interesting one here in the downtown Platte. So that is like the area of like Aberdeen and Charlotte Street, sometimes called like, further down is Rabbit Town, but this area has a lot of older trees. And one issue that's happening is a lot of the elm trees are dying, and they're dying in people's backyards. So there's these like really old, big trees that are really expensive to get removed that are in everyone's backyard. So that's been an issue that's been brought up to me, is that there's all of these trees and some of them are in apartment buildings, right? So they're landlords that own this property, and so maybe like a little less motivated to take care of the tree issue. So it's an interesting problem and something that I'm racking my brain, starting to work on, starting to figure out like what can we do to make this better. Safe roads is always something that gets brought up. The sidewalks not being plowed enough and salted enough, that's definitely a municipal issue, and definitely our weather here. And some years are better than others, so that's something that's always brought up. I'm trying to think what else is brought up to me. Arts and culture is something that's really important here in Fredericton, that a lot of people are looking for support in a variety of ways. I've heard people want to create a community performing arts center on the north side. People want a community garden in the downtown here, which is something I really want as well. So there's a lot of really cool projects that people want to see happen. There's a lot of small issues and big issues to be tackled. Some of them are, strictly within the municipal mandate. Some of them are outside the municipal mandate. And it's kind of like a hard balance that you have to strike as a city councilor between advocacy and innovation to help with these bigger problems that typically have been provincial issues. And it's difficult to kind of strike that balance. And so it's going to be challenging. It's going to be long nights. It's going to be difficult at times, but I'm excited. I think I think I'm I think I'm the best person for the position, but you might disagree, or people that I meet might disagree, but I have a lot of energy, a lot of drive, and I know that I will put my whole self into it.
You've just mentioned that people ask you for stuff they want to change. The municipal election brings a lot of hope to a lot of people. But what I've seen is that sometimes people ask for stuff that is out of reach of a city council. One of the things I've read in the media right now, since we've just changed our time due to the
the time change.
Yeah, so people are asking to the city council to take that out, but my understanding is that it doesn't have anything to do with municipality. What do you think?
Yeah, so that's definitely outside the municipal mandate. Not to say that's something you couldn't advocate for. So I think municipalities have a very important position. Municipalities are the heartbeat of a community. They are the closest to the problems that are happening on the ground level. So I think they play an important role in bringing those issues to the provincial government and to the federal government, so that those levels of government actually understand what matters to that municipality and the real issues that are happening. Now, the time change, I wouldn't say it's on my like top of my list of advocacy, but that would be an example of what you could do. You could advocate for that, but it's not something that would be within the legislation of a municipality to change.
Mm-hmm. There is a project that is being imposed from inside the municipality right now that will impact me directly. So they want us, permanent residents, to be able to vote in municipal elections. What do you think about that?
Oh, I am fully for that. I think it is absolutely something that needs to happen. Permanent residents play such an important role to our city, and we have such a growing immigrant population, and many of them haven't had the opportunity to become citizens yet, or they may not want to become full citizens. So being a permanent resident, you're still someone that lives in our city, you're still someone that pays taxes, you're still someone that does all those things, and then you have no say as to who your leaders are. It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't add up. So I am fully in support of that initiative to get permanent residents the ability to vote here in Canada, because it needs to happen. We have such an aggressive immigration strategy. We need immigrants to come to Canada because we're not replacing ourselves. We need their help, and we're encouraging immigrants to come to Canada, and then we're not giving them the right to vote because they're not Canadian citizens. It just seems contrary in my mind.
New Brunswick is very popular now in terms of immigration. People who wants to come to Canada, New Brunswick is a hot spot. Like my subscriber have doubled since November last year, because now we have a lot of opportunities for them. Even there are people from Quebec and Ontario, because I didn't know that, but there's a friend of mine who lives in Quebec who told me that they saw some publicity by the government of New Brunswick encouraging them moving to New Brunswick, and they are thinking about it.
Yeah, well, we would advertise in Quebec because we have a francophone population, so it would be something that there's a lot of it makes sense, right? So it's a place that people that may be francophone in Quebec could easily move to New Brunswick and still be able to speak French. And then with Ontario, we've had a bundle of Ontarians move to Fredericton recently, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Any real estate agent I talk to says they have a list a mile long of people from Ontario that want to move to New Brunswick. I think New Brunswick's not used to this. We're not used to being the hot spot for people to move. I think we have a lot of housing to build. I think we have a lot to do to get ready for this influx of people. And it's challenging. It's challenging to have such an influx of people, which is so great for our economy and for our culture and just for the fabric of our society. But we need to find places for everyone to live. So it's definitely a double-edged sword.
So let's talk about what's going to happen after elections. Like either way, like what's going to happen if you win, if you don't win, what's going to happen with Cassandra?
Yeah. So what's going to happen with Cassandra? If I win, I will be very excited, but there will be a lot of work ahead. There will be a lot of learning to do, a lot of reading to do, a lot of hard work ahead of me, which of course I'm excited for. If I don't win, I am going to have the most laid back summer of my life. I think I'm going to do absolutely nothing. No, I'm going to enjoy New Brunswick. I'm going to do a lot of camping. I'm going to do a lot of riding on my motorcycle. I'm going to just soak in the summer. I am participating in a couple powerlifting competitions. I probably will take more courses at university. And I'll probably get involved in some committees and boards to fill the void of not being Councillor Blackmore. But I'm not going to talk like that. The election's coming on May 10th. I'm going to be Councillor Blackmore. If I actualize it, I can make it happen. So I hope any listeners that are listening will take the time to check out my platform and my website and get to know me.
Great. So talking about your chances to win, have you checked at the polls? Do you know how are you positioned right now?
Yeah, so municipal politics there's not a lot of polling data, unfortunately, but I have seen some polling data from past elections. I I know the type of residents that live in my area. I know that we have a large amount of renters that live in Ward 10. About 75% of people that live in Ward 10 rent. So very interesting data there. There's been some very interesting data about how people in this ward vote. And even just looking at the past councillors. The councillor before Councillor McDermott was a woman. Councillor McDermott himself is quite an interesting character that anyone knows. John McDermott, he's fantastic. Tons of respect for John McDermott. And but he's got like his scarves, I love it. He's always wearing a knitted scarf. He's just, he's a photographer. He's just, this ward tends to vote a little bit outside the norm, and I really love that. I mean, I'm outside the norm. I've got a shaved head. I work for a not-for-profit. I love that I'm in a ward that votes in that manner, and so I'm excited to have the opportunity to run in this ward and potentially represent this ward. And it's just, it's a good time. So, I mean, it's been positive so far. I started my door-to-door campaign, and a lot of people already know me, which is really nice. I guess my social media campaign and my podcast has really been helping get my name out there and the word out there to people. So it's been encouraging to go door to door and have people already know who I am. So, I'm working hard. I'm pulling out all the stops, and from here, it's just hitting the ground running, and we'll see what happens on May 10th.
Great. So there's another thing I want to ask you. Like, word number 10, that's the word that everyone wants to run for. Like, what's the process? Like, how do you get to run for the city council?
Yeah, so it's actually like a really simple process. So you have to have lived in the ward that you're living in for the past 6 months, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that was the requirement. So you have to be in that ward, living in that ward for the past 6 months, and you have to be 18 years or older. You have to be a Canadian citizen, and then you have to get 10 nomination signatures. That's it. You have to get 10. You have to convince 10 people in your neighborhood to sign their name on the dotted line and say that they'll support you running for council. So you actually get to submit your nomination papers here in the next in 4 days. The returning office opens, and I'll get to submit my nomination papers, and I'll get to officially be a candidate for the municipal election on May 10th.
Great. That's so for every people who wants to run for the next election. I guess there's no time anymore for this one, but for next election for sure. Now you know how to do it.
Well, it's not too late. I mean, if anyone listening is in Ward 10 and wants to run against me, you still have time. The nominations close on April 19th. So you have until April 19th to get 10 signatures and submit your nomination papers. So there is still time to run in this municipal election.
But we don't need more candidates, because we already have the one who's going to win.
Yeah, obviously.
So we have some short questions for you. I know you have a very constrained agenda, but
I still got time.
So one of the things I wanted to mention, you've mentioned a couple of times your podcast. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people want to listen to it. So I just want you to tell my audience, how can they find your podcast?
Yes. All right. So I have a website, CassandraForCityCouncil.com.
Yeah, and they are seeing it here.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. CassandraForCityCouncil.com is my website. So every Sunday at 5 p.m., I post a new podcast. It goes right on my website. So there's a whole section on my website with all of my podcasts. You can watch the videos, or you can listen to the podcast on a variety of different sites. You can listen to it right on the website. I have social media as well. My Instagram and Facebook, it's just Cassandra for City Council. And I post on there when the podcasts are going live. So there's always information coming from there as well. So yeah, I love doing the podcast. It's called Community Talks with Cassandra. And I just do a variety of different guests throughout Fredericton on a variety of different topics. It's really just getting to know people in the community, talking about different issues that people care about, and just building community.
Okay, so just 2 more questions that people ask me a lot of times, and seems like random questions, and they are, but since people ask me this so often, I want you to ask you these 2 questions. The first one is about the LGBTQ plus community. I've heard a lot of time people saying that Fredericton is the city of the world outside of San Francisco, California, with the highest percentage of the population being part of the LGBTQ plus community. So
yeah, that is my understanding as well. I don't know like the statistic or the study or the stats on it officially, but from what I know, we have the highest per capita LGBTQ population in Fredericton. We have a very strong group in Fredericton, like fantastic. Like we have drag bingo, we have boot nightclubs becoming Monarch nightclub. We have Pride. Our Pride Day is so much fun. I highly encourage you when COVID is done and we can have our Pride Week back. I have a lot of fun during Pride Week. I've participated in the parade. I got to ride these electric bikes. I had this pink electric bike. It's a motorized bike from Jim Gilbert's, and I had so much fun one year. I got to ride that in the Pride Parade. It was amazing. So I highly encourage everyone. Like, we have an amazing LGBTQ community, and I love living in Fredericton because of the diversity that we have.
That's great. That's nice to know. So the last but not least,
yeah.
I've heard a lot when I first moved to Fredericton. There were many people saying me that people from Fredericton are snobs. That was super impressive to me. I wasn't expecting that because I live here. I've been here for 5 years, and that's not the case at all. But then I've visited other cities like St. John, Moncton, Shippagan, Bouctouche, Paquetteville, and yes, people are different. That I can tell. So do you can tell us why is that perception of some people?
So it's harder for me to fully understand that perception because I am on the ins. I'm a Frederictonian. But I think people can get that perception of Fredericton, and it may be true to a certain extent, actually. I've heard both sides. I've heard newcomers that find Fredericton extremely welcoming. I've heard newcomers that have struggled to find community in Fredericton and struggled to fit in. And I'm not sure why that's the case. I try my best from a personal point of view to connect people. It's something that I really love, is connecting people in the community. So when people reach out to me and say, like, I don't have a great friend circle, I don't know where to go for this, I haven't been able to find this, like I try my absolute best to connect everyone to the different places and the different people and try to build that community. So I think maybe Fredericton has some work to do on building community. I think in our modern society, we can lose that sense of community, that sense of knowing your neighbor and being involved in initiatives together. And I think that we have some room to grow in that area. And I think that we have some room to grow in being more accepting of people that are different and like really just focusing on building that beautiful community that I know Fredericton's capable of. So can't really answer that question as I am a Frederictonian, and it's harder to see this, maybe there is a lot of snobbery in Fredericton, but I try my best not to be that. So I'm hopeful that I'm not, and if anyone finds that I am, I'm more than happy to have them call me out on it. And I would love to learn I try to learn as much as I can from people that come to Fredericton and have different experiences than I do.
Great. Just for the record, I don't consider Frederictonians are snob. I do feel very welcomed here.
That's
I feel
good,
very
yeah.
well. I like all of you guys, Frederictonians. Thank you for being that nice with us.
I try. I mean, I think it just depends on who you are. And sometimes it depends on what circles you run in. And I think there's circles in every city that are more closed off and more, not as open. So I hope that Fredericton continues to be a place that people feel welcome in.
So what's your Instagram account for all of those people who want to follow you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Cassandra for City Council. You'll see me by my shaved head. So right now it's a little overgrown, but I have half a shaved head, so I'm pretty recognizable, and I have very long curly hair. And then my Facebook is just Facebook/Cassandra Cassandra for City Council. My name is the same across the board, so I'm really easy to find. If you Google Cassandra Blackmore Fredericton, you should be able to find everything about me.
Great. Thanks again for accepting the invitation. And us, the Latin community, when the pandemic is over, we're going to invite you to our Latin fiesta so that you dance salsa and bachata with us.
Yes, I would love that. I love to dance. So I would absolutely love to take part.
Great. So, gracias a todos ustedes por observar esta entrevista y será hasta el próximo video el viernes de la semana próxima.